Can you ever get back? That question was asked to me recently. And what I'm talking about is when you're diagnosed with cancer, you are instantly transported to an entirely different world than you've ever experienced. Or if you have a recurrence, which I've had two of, I'm now in my third treatment, you're transported back into this world of stress and fear and dwelling on every ache and pain and thinking about every nuance of your life that could affect how you're able to deal with this disease. It's a horrible world to live in, and undoubtedly the hardest part about being a cancer patient. I mean, obviously, there's the physically being diagnosed and going through treatment and trying to recover, and patients who don't, which is much, much worse than having to deal with the mental health ramifications. But how our treatment goes and the outcomes we get there are less controllable. It's less persistent. And I'm talking about when you're going through cancer treatment and it's going decently or perhaps well, which is more and more the case now with modern medicine and technology. The one thing that sticks across the board is you can't get out of this world once you're in it, which sucks, but it's true. And just like any other generalization in the world, there are exceptions. In the last 7 years of being a cancer patient, in the last 3 years of being a cancer patient advocate and talking to thousands of patients, both online and in person, I have encountered exactly two people who have told me, yeah, I got cancer, I did treatment, and then I just moved on with my life. And the irony of that is I was talking to them in cancer patient support messaging boards. And so why are they there? They probably haven't moved on with their life outside of, the benevolence of contributing, but they're still in the world of being a cancer patient. But this video isn't even a debate about whether you can or can't get out of that world once you've been in it. My take is that you clearly cannot. It's about how you can get mostly out of it and how you can live a pretty good life in spite of having one foot still in the other realm of being a cancer patient. Or if you're stuck with 2 feet in the realm of cancer patienthood, how you can work your way out of it over time as you progress in your treatment or you accept the outcomes and ramifications of being in treatment for the long term. So let's first talk about what I mean when I say you're transported with 2 feet into a different world, because while that's a catchy expression, it's kind of ambiguous and I think it's different for everyone. For me, the hardest part was how much my identity changed and how some of my actions were rerouted. Like, I was 30 when I was diagnosed for the first time, otherwise healthy, living a great stretch of my life, all eyes on the future. And all of a sudden, I was told I had a very serious cancer diagnosis and I needed to be prepared for a range of outcomes that included the worst. And it took me from a place where I was not invincible. I don't want to think I was that naive when I was 30, but it took me to a place where all of a sudden I had to look at the world through a lens of someone who was vulnerable and someone who needed to worry about short-term financial and long-term financial stress, and all of a sudden line things up in case things happen to me and my friends and family and my loved ones and my girlfriend, all these people that weren't dependent on me necessarily, but I was a big part of their lives, couldn't count on me all of a sudden. I mean, I owned a business that had 50 employees when I was diagnosed for the first time, and it took me the entirety of that first treatment to come to terms with I was no longer a dependable person in the role that I had been and how to kind of work my way out of that. And I don't want to use my cancer diagnosis as a shield or some sort of revisionist history for what my identity was before the diagnosis anyway. My role in our business was not my identity as a human being. I think my business partners will tell you that I probably could have taken that a little more seriously, but that's not even the point. My identity was someone who was spontaneous and a straw stirrer socially, and someone who took risks, and someone who was very, very proud of their body and took care of it and still does. But that was compromised immediately. All those things changed. I became, less socially inclined. I shut myself in my room. I became depressed. Like I said, I developed anxiety for the first time. And it forced me to really look at these things that I would have never associated with myself, Mike. And all of a sudden I had to say, look, this is now different Mike. This is Mike after cancer. And how do I get out of this? And it's easy for me to just, say these things that sound nice. It's easy for me to say I looked at these things. It took me 2 years from the first diagnosis that I had for me to correct any of this. I went through an entire year of treatment and an entire year afterwards where I was just 100% lost, because that's how crazy this shift from one world to the other is as a cancer patient. But look, we just established that you cannot fully get out of this world once you've been sent to it. So if we're eradicating that thought, the next line of thought has to be, okay, how do we wrestle back our identity a little bit? How do we reshape our identities so that post-cancer us is acceptable? Because one of the most frustrating things in life is not liking who you are, internally. You want to wake up every day and like who you are, because otherwise you're going to have some deep-seated unhappiness that just follows you around for, let's say, years on end, like I just described. And I've gotten to the point where I wake up and I like my life every day, in spite of having to also wake up and do cancer treatment every day, or also have to wake up and know that I have stage 4 metastatic melanoma that at any time could change even more. And all of a sudden I'd be in a complete dire situation. Whereas right now I'm just in this I don't know, muted fight or flight. I think that's one of the things that contributes most to this identity shift is that humans are not meant to be in extended fight or flight, and cancer, it's like 24/7. And eventually your body gets so used to being in there that that's your status quo. You're living in fight or flight. So all of a sudden, when you get to real life and you're trying to deal with things that aren't quite as hair on fire as cancer, you're just like, okay, how the fuck am I supposed to care about this? How am I supposed to react to normal human problems or problems in my life that once stressed me out or things that once got me excited as a cancer patient when all I can think about is, will this disease come back? Will I have enough money to pay for treatment? When is my next treatment? Do I have to do labs? When is my next scan? Is my next scan going to show me that I have to get back into treatment? It's this never ending cycle. I mean, you can see me getting worked up as I talk about it. And being fully candid, I didn't just start recording this episode of the vlog because someone asked me a difficult question about being a cancer patient. Usually I have some thoughtful answers there and I can move on with my life. But this one kind of rankled me a little bit because I'm struggling with a change in my life that is showing out the portions of my identity that were affected by cancer. And I'm not going to get into the specifics fully right now. That's right. I'm keeping secrets from the internet at this point in time. But basically, I'm going away for a couple months and it is freaking me out. And travel anxiety is something that I specifically developed after my first cancer diagnosis. Like I said, I shut myself in my room for a couple months on end. And I've really worked over time to just feel good when I leave my house for 2 days, when I get outside my routine. And I thought that I had a good hold on it. I've been doing very well with it this year in specific. I've gone on a number of trips over the last 12 months in cancer treatment, and it's been fine because this year of treatment has been pretty chill. But right now, I'm facing like the first big change in my life that's not cancer related in a long time, and I'm having a hard time with it, which is okay. It's a big change, and I will tell you guys about it very soon. But it's bringing up part of my identity that I want to be mine. I want to be this risk-taking, gambly guy. And all of a sudden, my personality has changed to the point where my brain is screaming at me and I'm struggling to find reasons to stay. And I'm trying to make myself feel better about this. And I can point to the, moment in time where my personality was changed and it's directly related to cancer. And that's frustrating. But life does work in funny ways. I mean, as I'm sitting here in front of this camera and just spewing my thoughts to you guys, I'm starting to calm down about it a little bit because that's why I've continued to do this vlog. I like helping other people. I like helping cancer patients and their families, but it's also for me and my mental health. I say this so often that this form of expression, this form of getting my thoughts out into the world, I was going to say on paper, but that's not really how this works. It helps me. It's cathartic and it helps reassure me that even though these thoughts exist and they're valid, it is okay for me to feel scared. It's okay for me to feel rankled by my identity being changed. That's just the reality of the situation that I'm faced with. And instead of receding and being pouty about it, I just have to do my best to work with what I got and to make the most of the brain that I have right now and the life that I have for the rest of time. So I'm going to go on this trip. It's going to be scary as hell. And you guys are going to see everything that I do. And it's going to be super cool. And I'm going to try to live my life to the fullest. But it's going to be one where I still have my foot in this world. I mean, I'm in active treatment. The person that I was responding to, they had just finished treatment, or they were 6 months out, actually. And they were saying, will I ever get all the way back? And I honestly do not think the answer is yes. And that sucks. We can grieve that. We can all grieve that as patients and loved ones of patients. But I think grieving something and then moving on to the best of your ability is the way that most loss in life works. And so if you're a cancer patient or if you're helping someone who's dealing with cancer, I think being realistic and rooted in the notion that this is a skill you have to work on. Responding to grief is a skill that people do have to deal with in life for the most part. And cancer is just a very unique version of that. It'll help you in the long term if you come to terms with that. So if you're worried about who you were and who you're going to be as a result of cancer, I think it's valid. But I think you just have to make it a priority to like who you are now, as opposed to trying to get back to who you were then, because you have cancer, or you had cancer, and it's going to continue to affect your life in one way or another. And I'm not saying this to be a downer, because I don't think that anyone who has been affected by the disease would, try and block that out either. It's just a hard thing to really accept. And clearly I'm having a hard time with that too. So thank you for riding along with me as I answer that person's question, but also get to vent a little bit on my own. I think it's important to bring up these topics that aren't talked about by oncologists or even referred to often in support groups. These are things that, your intrusive thoughts and your fears aren't expressed often. So if I can do it to you guys even a little bit, even at the surface, even if I won't tell you what's going on until a few days from now, I think it's beneficial for all of us. So that's all I got for today. I'll talk to you guys soon. Thanks again. Bye.